Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Smith. I'm a member of the business development team at Net Capital. Let's give everyone a few moments here to get settled in.
How many people are on?
Getting a good amount. We're going to give them a few moments here. All righty. Looks like we're getting to almost full capacity. All right. Well, looks like Teague, we are at full capacity right now. So without further ado, everyone, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome the founder and CEO of ENERGYX, Teague Egan. Teague, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for taking the time to join us. I know, we're going to get into, our working relationship really since last fall throughout this webinar, but having worked with you since really September of last year through now, one of the hardest working entrepreneurs that I've personally ever met. So I know you're flying all over the world, literally doing a million things, very extremely busy with the company. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today, and especially with our attendees, some that will be previous investors, others that have not invested in yet that want to learn more about the company. And before we start, just want to go through a few housekeeping items with everyone. As always, all of our companies during our webinars are actively raising capital on Net Capital, as is ENERGYX. You can invest in the company right now by visiting netcapital.com and searching ENERGYX if you are interested in making an investment in this very exciting company. For those who are live, I'm going to drop the link to their offering in the chat right now. Next, I want to mention that we do want this webinar to be as interactive as possible. So please use the Q&A function, not the chat, but the Q&A to send in your questions. And when it's time, we will be answering many of them. Now, as I mentioned before, I know we have investors that have previously invested in ENERGYX, as well as those who are new investors who have not invested in the company yet. We will do our best to cover both sides of the aisle. But with that being said, I want to introduce formally now Teague Egan, founder, CEO of ENERGYX. Teague, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So we this is our second go around on Net Capital, and the first one that we did, we started last November, December. And I think that we raised the most in Net Capital history. There might have been one other company that raised more than us, but we quickly hit the limit of what was priorly the limit for crowdfunding. And it was such a successful campaign that I messaged Tom and said that we should do another one. So since that time, we've crossed many milestones at the company. We've filed dozens of new patents, which is a really important part of our strategy. We've signed some important customer agreements, and we've also raised a significant amount of additional institutional capital. So, with all that said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
No, absolutely, Teague. Well, I just want to reiterate kind of what you said. So the old maximum that private companies could raise via vehicles such as Net Capital went up to $1,070,000 in a 365-day calendar year. On November 2nd, on a 3-2 vote, the SEC passed that the maximum is now raised to $5 million, and those regs went into effect and rules on March 15th. So as Teague mentioned, he and ENERGYX sold out their $1,070,000 round in the first go around. Then we had to wait till March 15th, and we launched the campaign a few weeks after that, his new campaign. Teague, you're off to an unbelievable start, but I know you've made a couple of changes in the company and brought on a couple more strategic partners and things like that. So where you're at now, can you tell everyone a little bit, because the team has changed for the better, and you adding new, more experienced people and things like that now that are on the ENERGYX team. Can you tell everyone about the team, what their backgrounds are, and why these folks are so unique into what you're doing with ENERGYX?
Yeah. So, last time that we raised capital, we had just over 10 employees in the company, and we raised, like Tom said, we raised about $1.5 million or $1.4 million from net capital. Had, I think, 1,200 or so investors that invested the last time. We were able to supplement that with some institutional financing earlier this year, and we actually raised 20 million in capital, and that has allowed us to put in place some scaling plans for our team. We brought a new CFO onto the team. He has a background at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the big four accounting firms, and spent 17 years there as a partner, doing audits and financials for a number of energy industry related utilities, etc. And then he spent the last few years at a liquefied natural gas company, where he raised $2 billion in equity and $7 billion in debt for a big LNG project. So he's been a great addition to the team on our executive team. With the financing of 20 million, we brought on a new board member, and he's become the vice chairman of the company. He led the majority of the institutional financing. He has a background at Lazard Asset Management, which is one of the top private equity shops that manages 140 billion in assets, and he was a partner there for a number of years. And then we brought on several more scientists onto the team, including process design engineering, electrodialysis, and that's really going to be the main focus moving forward. We just signed a lease for a new innovation lab in Austin, Texas, that is our first wholly owned or operated laboratory. Up until this point, we have been operating out of our partners' laboratories, both in San Francisco area and at the University of Texas. But now that we have our own independent laboratory, we will be ramping up our science staff, which is really the core of what we do, and we'll be scaling the team from about 18 people that it is now up to 50 people, of which 35 or so will be on the science and engineering side.
Exciting stuff, Teague. And like I said, having worked with you since the fall and seeing just how far you've come, and obviously less than a year, really, in 8-9 months, it's so impressive. But for those who are interested in ENERGYX and haven't made an investment yet, can you talk a little bit about on the core to the problem that ENERGYX is solving, and then where the company's going with that problem? So how is that evolving, and the steps that you're taking to solve that problem in 2021?
Yep. So I'll answer that, and then I want to get to some of these questions that people are asking, both in the chat and the Q&A.
Yep.
So for those who don't know really about the core of ENERGYX, we're basically addressing this supply-demand imbalance of lithium. Lithium being the key material in rechargeable batteries that are not only used in probably all the consumer electronics you guys are using to watch this, but mainly electric vehicles. And to put that into perspective, it takes about 10,000 iPhone batteries to make one electric vehicle battery. So if you're thinking about how many, iPhones or computers there are in the world, to make 1 million electric vehicles, that's the equivalent of 10 billion iPhones. So as we move towards an electric vehicle future, the amount of demand around batteries and therefore lithium is just tremendous. And our manufacturing processes are not set up right now to be able to produce the amount of lithium that we need for this electric vehicle transition. So that's the problem that ENERGYX is addressing. We're developing technology to try to close that gap between the supply and the projected oncoming demand. We've been working on this technology for the past 3 years and are getting ready to deploy our pilot plants into the field. Right now, we have working pilot plants that are in our lab, and our customers, who are all the tier 1 lithium producers, have sent us their real world material to test in the lab for as long as we can. You can only send, so much of this brine, this lithium enriched brine water to the lab. But we want to make sure that our pilots are functioning in the lab before we send them out for 6 to 12 months into the field. So that's kind of the process that we're in right now. And a way to think about where we are in the evolution of the company is a scale called TRL, which is Technology Readiness Level. It was developed by NASA to gauge the development of hard scientists. And it's a scale from 1 to 9. TRL 1 being kind of an ideation phase, and TRL 9 being a full commercial manufacturing facility. We're at TRL 6 right now, heading into TRL 7, which is when our pilot systems will be deployed into the field. So we're well across the halfway mark, and then once our pilots are in the field, they'll be tested for 6 to 12 months. We'll move to a short demonstration phase, which is just a scale up of the pilot, which is TRL 8. And then TRL 9 is full commercialization, which we look to be in by end of 2022, early 2023. So that's kind of the problem we're addressing in the timeline. So I think with that, I just want to, briefly, Tom, here, answer some of the questions that people are asking. I'll start with Mark, because I saw that in the chat first. Mark said, can you speak to how the funds raised in this round will be used, and your thoughts about whether and when another round will be done in the future? That's his first question. So let me just answer that first, because it's already 2 questions. The funds in this round, so we just raised $20 million that I mentioned, and when we went out to raise that institutional financing, we were actually way oversubscribed. And I, in part, credit that to the net capital exposure that we got from our first net capital raise. And we were about 5 times oversubscribed, but we didn't want to dilute the shareholders too much in that raise. So we brought in that capital, and then when this limit for crowdfunding increased, like Tom mentioned, from around 1 million to 5 million, we said, let's go out and open this offering to the general public again for an additional 4 million. And we have 4 main initiatives that this funding will go to and be used for. The first is, like I mentioned, and we kind of group this additional 4 million with the 20 million that we just raised, right? So this tranche of financing will be used, 1, to scale our team. We're at 18. We want to get up to about 50 scientists. 2 is for the build out of this innovation lab that we just signed in Austin, Texas. 3, and probably most importantly, is the deployment of our pilot plant. So that is a milestone that we believe will greatly increase the value of the company, probably into the 10-figure range. There's already been technology validation in the lab and on these pilots in the lab, but that's still a very different scenario than having the pilots in the actual field operating on a day-to-day basis with external elements. So the majority, well, maybe not the majority, but a good amount of this funding will go to those pilot operations. Each pilot has a capex of about $1 million. So that's $3 million in deployment plus the operational expenses once they're in the field. As I mentioned, after the pilot, there is a demonstration plant. The demonstration plant roughly costs $2.5 million. However, when we get to the demonstration phase, we will look to have cost sharing from both our partners that are the manufacturing partners of the systems, as well as the resource owners. So the customers will help in that cost sharing once we have pilot proof of concept in the field. So that's the third. There's actually 5. So 1 is the team, 2 is the lab, 3 is the pilots and the demonstration plants, 4 is the actual commercial manufacturing process of the membrane. So the membranes are our bread and butter. And we have thought about partnering with existing membrane manufacturers to manufacture the membrane. This would be the same company that manufactures all the ancillary pieces like the tubes, the casing, the pipes, the drivers, the valves, the pumps, the stacks, all of that goes into a balance of plant. They can also manufacture membranes. However, that's kind of like our Coca-Cola secret sauce, if you will. And we want to produce that as opposed to doing like the bottling and the canning and all that. So we'll look to invest capital into our own membrane manufacturing line. And then the 5th is the IP. So we currently have 23 patents. When we did this first net capital raise, we had 8 patents. So we've added 15 patents in the beginning of this year. And we'll look to increase that to hopefully over 100 patents by the end of the year or early next year. And IP is expensive. So those are the 5 pillars that we will look to deploy our capital into. And then you said, will there be another round done in the future? And the answer is yes. So we had such overwhelming interest in our last financing. We were so oversubscribed that we had to cut everybody back. And we'll be looking to do what we're calling a Series B, probably over the summer or into early fall, that will see us bringing in an additional $100 million in capital at a valuation that is most likely double the current net capital valuation. And that will be from larger institutional funding.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you for the questions, and Teague, thank you for the thorough answers on that. Next question that I think parlays into a little bit what you touched upon that I have 5 here that are kind of alluding to this regarding the commercial projects. So the first half is, do you have any active commercial projects? And if not, when do you expect that to take place?
So I just answered that in the last question with Mark. We're currently deploying our pilot plants into the field, and we will look to, so there's pilot plant, which is TRL 7. Then there's demonstration plant, which is TRL 8, which is a small scale up. And for us, that's putting 1 commercial size unit into the field. And we do all of our manufacturing prefab and modular. So then commercial will be just 1,000 of these kind of 1 full size units. And we hope that happens in late 2022 or early 2023.
Great. Thanks, Teague. And next question is, how does your company make money? What is the plan in terms of the revenue stream?
Yeah. So our business model, so we are an energy technology company. We currently don't look to own lithium assets like mines. We don't want to manufacture our equipment and make money off selling equipment. We want to make money off the intellectual property that we've developed. And the way that we do that is by showing the value that our technology provides to um, the producer of the lithium, who's ultimately our client. So we look at it as what we call TaaS, technology as a service. Most of you are probably familiar with SaaS, subscription as a service, but we're basically licensing our technology as a service and looking at how much that saves producers. We take a profit share from that. So to put this in all realistic kind of lingo, for every ton of lithium produced by a producer that uses our technology, we'll take a fee, and that could be as high as $1,000 per ton of lithium. That's our current business model. We are also exploring how we could be kind of a broker of lithium, and because we're providing this technology that makes lithium production so much more efficient and cost effective, that we would then partner with the producer to sell the lithium and take an actual profit share of the sale of that lithium to the final customer, who's either the battery cell manufacturer or the auto OEM. So there's really high margins in what we do because we are an asset light, capital light business. It's just purely focused on developing this IP and proving out our technology in the field. We have no like major capital intensive build outs or anything like that. That's not our obligation. That's the producer's obligation.
Thanks, Teague. And then keeping going with the revenue stream and how the company makes money. Can you talk about some of the key customer acquisitions that you're looking at, if there's any between now and to the end of the year, but going into 2022?
Yeah. So we first of all, I can't talk about which specific acquisitions we're looking at, but we've been fortunate to have built our company into one of the leaders in the direct lithium extraction space. And because of that, we're looking at consolidation efforts in DLE and acquiring complementary technologies to ours that just make our suite of offerings more attractive to the customer. We're also looking at more vertical integration. So, we help with this one very specific piece of the lithium production supply chain. But once the lithium is produced, we're looking at how that's used. And our core technology actually lends itself very nicely to next generation batteries. And I think there was a question here from Mark again about solid state batteries. Battery line of business ties into the lithium extraction, and the goal is actually create solid state battery. Right. So our core technology is a membrane that lets lithium pass through it at very high transport rates and rejects other salts. And we said, can we use that membrane in a solid state battery architecture? And we first decided that we needed to create a partnership around this, and we partnered with Dr. John Goodenough, who is the Nobel Prize winning inventor of the lithium ion battery at the University of Texas. And we've seen really good results, initial results around that. We've gained the interest of several large battery cell manufacturers around that, and are in discussions for that. So that's an exciting initiative. It's about 10% of our bandwidth right now as we look at lithium extraction and solid state batteries. It has a little bit longer timeline towards commercialization. We're looking at 2027-ish, around that, but we're focused on one piece of the battery, which is just the electrolyte or separator that separates the anode from the cathode, which are the two pieces that store the lithium either during charge or discharge, and then they travel back and forth to one another. So that's how the battery piece fits in. Ultimately, lithium is the main material in not only lithium ion batteries, but also solid state batteries. So there could be a scenario where those two things start to merge. And if we control lithium supply, we can essentially use the lithium that we create for our own batteries. So those things start to merge in that sense. And I just have to give a shout out to my boy Lance Lipman here. Lance has a question. Lance and I did Birthright together in Israel. He's a fellow Jew, my man. So Lance said, is there any competitors entering the market with a similar product? And like, are there any other companies looking to offer a similar task for lithium? So, I'm not the only one to recognize that the lithium supply demand imbalance is big. And there are other companies that are developing products and solutions for direct lithium extraction and just overall lithium production efficiency. And it's a mix, right? So there's startups like ENERGYX that are trying to address this problem, and then there are big lithium producers that are trying to develop internal solutions. And typically, the big companies are a little bit too bureaucratic to develop in-house solutions, and they look to acquire more innovative solutions and then add that to making their products more efficient. So when I think about competitors, there's a few out there that everybody here should be aware of. One is E3 Metals, another is Standard Lithium, another is Lilac Solutions, another is Adionics, another is Tenova. And but what differentiates us from all of those other competitors is that instead of so let me actually just take a step back. So when we first saw this problem and started studying the current methods of production of lithium, we looked at the evaporation ponds that lithium is currently produced in. It's these huge evaporation ponds that you can search online, and they take a really long time to go through the whole cycle and end with lithium, and they have very low recovery rates. And we said, this is a very outdated method, and we want to come up with something new that replaces the ponds. And that's was my thinking, and that's actually all of our competitors' thinking as well. When we approached all of the big producers with this, amazing idea, they rejected us, and we were wondering why. And the reason is because they've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars of sunk cost on these evaporation ponds. So we had to pivot our approach and say, how can our technology be complementary to the existing ponds? And while that might not be immediate environmental impact, it was an immediate economic impact, because we use the existing infrastructure in the ponds, and we have a much lower capital solution for the producers. And all the other competitors to us are looking at solutions that replace the ponds, which would be hundreds of millions to create a new facility. And while it would probably be more efficient than the ponds and recover more lithium, the ponds are proven, and these companies are currently producing hundreds of thousands of tons of lithium. So we said, how can we get to millions by using the ponds? And the answer is membranes, which is what we develop. And we are the only company that has gone down this membrane path. All the other companies have used like ion absorption, where they use beads or sponges to soak up the lithium. And that just doesn't work with the ponds. So that's kind of the competitive landscape, at least how we view it.
So Teague, that kind of goes into the next question. I want to answer one that's has been asked a couple of times. Is lithium the only focus of the technology, or is it applicable to other areas? And I know you've touched upon it a little bit here and there, but to just answer that, and we've gotten that a few times from folks.
Yeah. So right now, lithium is our only focus. Now, theoretically, our technology is a separations-based technology and can be applied to a number of different separations in aqueous solutions. But as a startup company with a limited amount of capital and a limited amount of bandwidth, lithium is our laser sharp focus right now. Plus, I just think that lithium is the lowest hanging fruit and a very high value natural resource. So we are only focused on lithium, but there is, down the road potential for other business revenue streams.
That's great. Thanks, Teague. And I know we're getting a few more repeated questions here.
Here, let me just go down. So Gary says that he's the person that keeps pestering me on IG. He has two questions. Where do I see the company being in 2035? I mean, so I created a 10-year master plan on the website that you can read, Gary. It talks about this vertical integration that I've discussed. Once we commercialize our lithium extraction technology and have revenue flowing from that, we may look to own the resource and develop the lithium ourselves. We obviously have this battery initiative, and I think that we want to be a major player in the energy storage space, right? So developing better batteries, developing the materials that go into batteries, developing applications for batteries and energy storage. I think that I've read Thomas Edison's biography, and he was an inventor of all sorts. Our focus is a little bit more narrow than what he was doing, but having a big innovation lab and developing next generation energy technologies is what we want to focus on. I don't know if that's the answer. There's another side of the answer of we obviously want to become a public company, Fortune 500 aspirations from a financial standpoint. So 2035 is 15 years away. I think that time is a funny thing. Looking back 15 years, like think about where Tesla was looking back 15 years. I think that Tesla started in 2013. So they started, 18 years ago. The sky is the limit for what somebody can do in 15 years.
Awesome. Well, Teague, everyone is fascinated by this, and we see the questions coming in and whatnot. But this has come up a number of times because obviously this didn't happen, overnight. You've been working on this, before 2018. The idea was spawned, and then you started putting the pieces in place. But can you tell everyone kind of the impetus on how this was founded and really how you came up with this idea? And then I think that will streamline the evolution of it.
Yeah. First, let me just answer a few other quick questions. So, are we accepting Dogecoin? Not yet. Can you become Elon so crypto doesn't go down? Yeah, crypto. Don't put your life savings into crypto. Alan said, "What's our current IPO share price?" So, IPO means initial public offering. We're not there yet, but our share price is $8 a share on net capital right now. John said commercial projects. I answered that. What are the best traits that an entrepreneur must have? I think just self-confidence. If you need other people to encourage you or anything like that, like being an entrepreneur, there's so many ups and downs. This question's from Gustavo. Every day there's ups and downs. Like, and I can't even describe the feeling that you have when you're almost out of money, or when and that happened early on with us. Like last summer, I'd put over $1 million of my own money into this and was almost out of money, and then we had some big investors come in and invest 2 million. That was last summer. And you just have to have unwavering self-confidence as an entrepreneur. Jonathan O'Brien, one of our investors in the convertible note last summer when we almost ran out of money. Thanks, Jonathan. In relation to solid state batteries, I'm aware of the page on the ENERGYX website, which has some information, but I would like if Teague could expand on that information. What is viewed as expectation for the model with regards to EV market phasing out? Yeah, so I touched on this briefly. I mean, I think that lithium ion batteries are great right now, and there's been a lot of investment into lithium ion batteries, but I look at batteries almost like computer chips, in that as this becomes a household item for a renewable energy future, there's going to be improved versions of battery architectures, and that's something that we really want to focus on. If we were using just think about where the computer chip has gone from the first computer chip to be able to be having a Zoom meeting with however many people are on this in live time. Like, there's just so much more capacity, and I think that the energy density of batteries will maybe not follow Moore's law, which is what we use for computer chips, which is doubling like every year or however long Moore's law is, but there'll be significant advance in batteries. How does ENERGYX earn revenue? Answer that. What are the key customers you have contracts with? So the one that we've announced is Orocobre, which actually just did a huge merger with Galaxy to become, it was a $4 billion merger to become the third largest lithium producer in the world. That's our biggest announced customer. We're in discussions with all the other tier one customers. That's what I can say about that. Thanks for listening to this call. I'm Gary. Okay, I answered Gary's question. Where did you get the idea to pull the essential components? Okay, so this is the question that Tom just asked, that Mark Kahn also asked, like, what was the impetus for the idea? And I'm a big traveler. I think that traveling the world, you get to see a lot of different things that open your mind. And the idea came to me while I was traveling in Bolivia, of all places, such an obscure place that not many people would think to go. But Bolivia stakes claim to the world's largest salt flat, which is an absolutely beautiful place. It's called Salar de Uyuni. And I'm on this tour of the salt flat, and my tour guide starts explaining how this salt flat is also the largest lithium reserve in the entire world. And I was jaw dropped. I still can feel the feeling of what was going through my head when this tour guide told me that. This is early 2018, before Tesla had its meteoric rise, and I've been a Tesla owner since 2013, but I had never wondered where the battery was made and where the materials that make a battery come from. And here I was standing right in the middle of it, and I said, I think that this is the biggest opportunity that I've ever seen in my life. And I was a huge believer. I bought $500,000 worth of Tesla at $9 a share. So obviously I was a huge believer. That was the impetus for the idea of the business. And then, I explained how I started doing a bunch of, I didn't know the first thing about lithium. And I started doing a bunch of research on how lithium was produced and how we were going to get this valuable material that makes batteries. And I started to understand the fallbacks of where lithium production sits today, and the oncoming demand that is required for electric vehicles. And that's where I saw the opportunity. And from there, it was just about knocking down door by door. And I've had thousands of calls that have gone nowhere, a few calls that have been really important, a tremendous amount of failure, a good deal of success. And it's literally just about taking every single call and doing every single information session like this to educate the public. I've worn every hat. And this business literally started with just me with this idea that I explained. And, we've grown to about 20 people and raised 20 million and growing to 50. And I've worn every single hat in the company. And, we just brought on an advisor to our advisory board who was the former CFO of Tesla Energy. And he worked hand in hand with Elon on all of the Tesla Energy products. So the solar roof, the power wall, etc., all those products. And he was telling me a story about how he was in a meeting with Elon working on the Tesla Energy portion of the website. And that picture on the Tesla website, that's the solar roof with the power wall and the car. He said that Elon spent 4 hours on this one picture on the website to make it as perfect as possible so people could see the angle of the roof. And that was just mind blowing to me. And I think that it takes that amount of attention to detail to every aspect of the company to be able to pull all the components together. And no one is like Elon. He's the greatest inventor in mankind history. But I try to replicate as much as I can to him. So, that's where I got the idea, and that's how I pulled all the components together.
Well, Teague, you're doing a pretty good job. I want to go to Raheem's question here with helping Bolivia meet its aspiration to be an evolutionary battery manufacturing powerhouse. Can you touch upon that?
Sorry, say that one more time. Say that one more time.
So we got 3 questions up here. Just what you're doing with Bolivia and the government to help them meet their aspirations of becoming a battery manufacturing powerhouse. And will you place your solid state battery manufacturing plant there in the foreseeable future?
In Bolivia, that was the question, right?
Yeah.
So I think that Bolivia is a very interesting prospect. They sit on the largest lithium reserve in the entire world, and but they've had trouble actually producing lithium due to really 2 things. One is technical, just the quality of the brine that's down there and some environmental elements. And then the second is geopolitical. They had some political turmoil over the past 12 years, but now they have a new presidential administration that is much more technocratic and realizes that they need to partner with international companies that are focusing on this specific problem for them. And then the third problem is that I think they wanted to do it all from the very beginning. They want to produce the lithium, produce the batteries, and produce electric vehicles. And I think that that's unrealistic to start. I think that you need to walk before you run, and that they should get the lithium up and running and start generating revenue and producing the core base product that they have as a natural resource. Once they have perfected that, then you can look towards battery cell manufacturing or cathode or solid state manufacturing. And it's certainly a possibility. I think that for us, we're looking to partner with larger established battery producers in our quest to produce solid state batteries. I said earlier, we're focused on one aspect of a solid state battery that's kind of like the key to enabling solid state. But in terms of Bolivia, we're laser focused on how do we help Bolivia start producing lithium. The rest is just all cheap talk, right? Let's produce lithium first, and once we have accomplished that, then we can think about what happens after that. And that's the same for our company as well. Like I've talked a little bit about solid state batteries, and we have a few people working on that, but it's 10% or less of our business. We are focused on direct lithium extraction and production, and until we get that right, that's that's going to be our main source of revenue, that will enable us to start actually building commercial processes around batteries. So that's what we're focused on right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Teague. Looking ahead, and so the first part to the answer to first answer to this question is we've been asked a little bit about, what's the potential exit to investors. So on Net Capital, we have a secondary transfer feature, and we just did a big partnership that began in February with Rialto. So it gives investors the flexibility to buy and sell their shares via our platform, which should be up in a matter of months. We've been working very hard on that, so that's a potential exit for investors. But Teague, can you talk big picture here about the potential exit for investors?
So it's really hard to discuss potential exit because there's just it's impossible to predict the future like that. Like if somebody could come tomorrow and offer a deal that is impossible to turn down. And our goal is to the way that I think about it is just purely from an operational standpoint. If we can create great products that create customer value and save our customer money or generate more money for our customer, then ultimately we've done our job. And we're in a sector that has tremendous tailwind. There's a lot of investment and there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around renewable energy and electric vehicles, and I'm thankful for that. But as we talk about an exit, I think that there's obviously possibilities of a traditional IPO. SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies, are a really interesting financial instrument that provides liquidity for our shareholders and substantial capital injection into the company. There's also a variety of potential acquirers that would be interested in a company like ours, from major auto OEMs who I had a call with earlier today, to battery cell manufacturers, our customers, the lithium producers that just want to scoop us up and add our offering to make us exclusive to them, right? That gives them an inherent competitive advantage. Our partners who are manufacturing our technology that are multi $10 billion publicly traded companies that could easily acquire us, and then PE firms. So I don't really focus on that. I think that that will come if we do our jobs correctly. I just think about executing on the products as quickly as possible. Every day, every week that goes by is operational burn for our company. And the quicker that we can accomplish milestones and important milestones that drive value, those companies and those opportunities will come knocking on our door. So that's how I think about operations versus exit.
Great. Thanks, Teague. I know we're getting towards the end of our time here. And actually a follow-up to that was, would you accept a buyout from Elon? And I, knowing you and working with you for the past year, it depends what it costs, right? There's a price tag to everything. But Teague, just really, in the final minutes here, just letting folks know, is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you want to let your previous investors know, as well as the new investors who are interested in investing in ENERGYX but haven't yet?
I mean, I'd rather just go down and look at some of these questions. I think I've covered a pretty broad scope of the company. Let's see, how much time do you consider it'll take ENERGYX to start paying back investors? So that goes to the liquidation event. It's as soon as we're liquid. Let me just say this. So the investors that invested in the first round of net capital invested at a basis of $1.63 per share, and now we're offering shares at $8 a share. So the people that have invested have already 5 times their money on paper, which is obviously a great return. Now it's not yet a liquid investment, which is what I just explained, but we hope to get there. We hope to get there soon, and we're in a great position right now with a lot of cash in the company, and I think that the future of this industry is a great problem that needs to be addressed, and we're well on our way. So I don't have an answer on how much time it'll take to pay back investors, but that's something I think about every day, is paying investors back. Are there any other companies using matrix technology in the space? If not, does ENERGYX patent position? Yeah, so there are no other companies, to my knowledge, that are using membrane technology to address this, and we have a really comprehensive patent moat around that. And it's a good question though, Darren. And we look to build our patent portfolio up into the hundreds. That's the bread and butter of our company. Are you considering using technology in the EV battery disposal recycling? So we're not thinking about recycling yet. I think recycling is going to be a huge business, and an advisor that we just brought on started Cycle, which actually just did a SPAC and took their company public at 1.7 billion. And that is something that will be very important in the energy storage and renewable energy circular ecosystem. So that's not something that we're focused on. Does ENERGYX have a lot of competitors? I answered that. Oops. Let's see from the top, Jesus. So I answered share price IPO. Do you have commercial projects? I answered that. Should have. I answered that. Gustavo answered that. Jonathan answered that. Has ENERGYX earned revenue? I answered our business model. Which are the key customers that you have? I answered that. Gary, I answered Gary's question. Mark answered that. What is the as at current date raised total? Okay, so on the first one we raised 1.5 million, and we've been live on Net Capital now for like a few weeks, and I think we're at, as you can look it up, it's 700,000 or 720,000, something
Just
like that.
about 720,000 raised on the second round, which launched a couple weeks ago.
Right. Josh, is the lithium the only focus, or is there other applicable areas? Yes, I answered that. Lithium is our only focus. Perry Taylor, if I'm one of the largest lithium mining companies in the world, I'd be eyeing a possible buyout of ENERGYX before the valuation skyrockets too late. Close to the minimum. Okay, so yeah, so I said this, like I think that lithium companies have already asked us for exclusivity, and we said no. Just because I think that the opportunity is so big, like we've worked really hard in building this, and it's been my blood, sweat, and tears and money that I've invested, and everybody else's money that has now invested. And if the right offer came along, like, yeah, I would consider that with my board of directors and executive team, and it would be a nice return for all investors. But I think about the Luxottica story. It's this sunglass company that was manufacturing all the sunglasses for all the big brands, and then they bought the distribution. They bought Sunglass Hut, and like all of a sudden they became the biggest sunglass player. I think that owning this technology that we've developed could really lead us to cornering the lithium market in one way or another. And it might take a couple of years, maybe a decade, but I think that just all depends. Raheem, how are you going to avoid or counter industrial espionage of your IP? That's a great question, Raheem. And I think that we not only are developing a robust patent portfolio, but we do have dozens of trade secrets. The exact formula of our membrane and the exact fabrication method. These are highly kept secrets that aren't even in our patents. And our patents are pretty broad, like they give ranges, and so developing the membranes is one thing, and then when the membranes are deployed, we obviously have, you can't try to reverse engineer or anything like that. It probably be really hard to do, but it's certainly a worry. I mean, it's a risk. There's risk in everything that you look at, but it's a good question. Jonathan O'Brien, who are some of your manufacturers? So we're partnered with Suez, which is a global water technology conglomerate. They manufacture the most membranes in the world. They manufacture all the other ancillary balance of plant pieces. They're on our website. You can read about Suez Water Technology Solutions. Robert Heckler, when do you expect to generate revenue? So we could start generating revenue from our pilot plants or demonstration plants, and that would be, a few $1,000,000. But the real pot of revenue comes from the licensing, and that's when we go commercial, which is end of 2022, early 2023, or from like offtake agreements, or I said that we said no to exclusivity agreements, but there's different forms of exclusivity agreements, like territorial. If we did a big agreement in territory, we could generate revenue. I don't know if I answered all. I think there was one more, but okay. And then let me see if there's any questions over here in the chat. Lots. Okay, Gustavo, second, I'm passionate about this project. I answered Gary. Yeah, Gary, just apply to the website. Lance, Mark, Raheem, Thomas. Initial pilot plant, we're looking to be operational by end of summer or early fall. Do you think the impulsive impulsive podcast is a great experience? I think that it helped us raise a few $100,000. I have hundreds of people that reached out to me saying that that's the reason they invested. So we hope Olivia meets battery aspirations. I answered that. Nigel, can you say why your HQ is in Puerto Rico? Yeah, so our headquarters is based in Puerto Rico for tax purposes. If you don't know about Puerto Rico taxes, you should look into that. It's a pretty attractive scenario. Our scientific headquarters are based in Austin, Texas. But Puerto Rico has 4% corporate tax rates and is a part of the US. So really good for all shareholders that is the case. What part of your business is giving you the most challenge now? Oh, that's a good question. What current business risk have you identified? What percentage of the market share do you hope to get? So it's a good question. Keep saying no buyouts. Raheem, love it, Raheem. So biggest challenges right now. I think that the process that we're at of testing, getting ready to deploy these pilot plants into the field is our biggest challenge. And that's of course where we are right now. Once the pilots are in the field, there is a lot less tweaking and optimizing and troubleshooting that you can do. All of that is really easy in the laboratory when you're testing it on a day-by-day basis. So just feeling comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and press go and deploy these pilots into the field. We've just hired process design engineers that will go service these in the field. And we're just trying to gear up and test as much of the real world material that these customers have sent us in our labs before we send them into the field. So that's the biggest challenge right now. What current business risks have you identified? So all of the risks are on the Net Capital website. I think there's 20 risks, and it's a little overextensive just because it has to be from a liability standpoint. But there's small business risk, there's capital raising risk, there's technology risk, there's scaling risk. I think scaling is one of the biggest challenges. Like, and Elon says this a lot, like making one car is easy, but making 100,000 cars is really hard. We have made one car. We've made our pilot plants, and they're great and they work. But scaling that and doing it on a commercial level is really hard, and it takes the whole team working, tremendous hours to get that done. What percent of the market share do we hope to get? Well, 100%, logically. Would you accept the buyout from Elon? At what price would you like the stock to go liquid? Do you anticipate making your membrane technology available to solid state battery companies? Mark, yes. I mean, I think that, yeah, we want to partner with more advanced battery technology companies than us. And at least right now, that's our thought process. I may have missed this, but did you buy or license the UT? We licensed our IP from UT, Kim, if you're still there. And that's 4 patents that we licensed from UT on a worldwide exclusive basis in perpetuity of the IP. And then we've added an additional, like 19 patents after that. Can be an obstacle for the company. I just explained the biggest challenges, but thanks. That's a good question, Sean. The CPA in me approves. Most questions in a format like this naturally are about what you can do for an investor. Aside from investing funds, is there anything that investors can do to help ENERGYX become more successful? That's also a great question, Mark. I give the best questions of the day to Mark. I think we're in a B2B business. It's I think that general awareness is important. Investing funds, we're developing a technology and we're selling it to a lithium producer, and but I think that it's not like Tesla, which is a consumer product. I have to think about that. Mark, if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. What investors can do. There's a lot of tailwinds behind, climate change, like I said, and I think that the more momentum that we have around that is good. But I don't know the answer to that. I'd love to hear from you, Mark. My email is teague@energyx.com. So let me know what you think.
So Teague, we've wrapped up with the Q&A so far, and I know we have a couple in the chat over here. Next question is, do you think about Elon's idea to mine his own lithium in the US?
So he explained this concept during Battery Day, which was last September, I think. And it left a lot of the lithium industry perplexed on how he was going to do this. I think that his notion of securing the reason that Elon's so successful and that no other car company has come out with substantial electric vehicles is because he's built his company from the ground up, and all of these other car companies are trying to adapt and transform or retrofit what they're doing. So he's really good at vertically integrating all of the supply chain that he needs and squeezing out margin all the way up. So that's a logical move, is for him to mine his own lithium. I mean, that's, like I've said this whole time, lithium's the most important piece in batteries. Batteries are the crux of electric vehicles. How he's going about that is still a pretty big question mark. But if I've learned one thing, it's to never doubt Elon. So we're all pretty interested to see what he's working on. And I think that whatever that ends up being, I'll certainly be interested and hopefully our technology may be able to make that more efficient, just depending on that process.
Great. Thanks, Teague. We have time for one more question here. I know we ran a few minutes over, but this is great. And just want to thank everyone for their interaction. Teague, thank you for your thoroughness with a lot of the questions. From Nick here, and Raheem, thank you. He says, I keep telling my friends to invest. Big fan of yours, Teague. And ENERGYX. Can ENERGYX adjust their membranes to be used for collecting microplastics more efficiency?
So I kind of addressed this earlier. You know, we've tailored our membranes very specifically to be able to separate and transport lithium. Theoretically, that's something that membranes can do is separate microplastics. Depending on how you know, micro is typically a defined size. It goes micro and then nano. So nano is smaller than micro, but it's just not something that we're thinking about right now. We're solely focused on lithium.
Great. Thanks, Teague. Wrapping up here, and my last question for you is, with everything we covered, is there anything else that you would want to say to your past investors or potential investors that either wasn't asked from the Q&A that we didn't go over at the beginning? Anything else that you want to let folks know about ENERGYX?
No, I mean, I just want to thank everybody that, first of all, tuned into this and stayed the whole time, and that have supported us and me and the company in this journey. And I hope to make you all very proud and give you all big returns on your investment. So stay tuned.
Absolutely, Teague. Well, for those who haven't invested yet, or if you've invested before, interested in investing again, ENERGYX is live right now. You can go to netcapital.com, type in ENERGYX to make your investment if you feel inclined to do so today. Want to thank everyone for the great questions, thoughtful questions, and thorough questions. Teague, especially want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to interact with us here once again at Net Capital, but also your previous investors and as well as those who may be interested in investing. And as always, again, ENERGYX is live on netcapital.com right now if you're interested in investing. Teague, always good to see you. Thank you again. And we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys.
Take care.